Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome inside the Guilty as Charged podcast. My name is Steven, and I am your host. And joining me tonight for a very special interview is Kent Swanson of KC Sports Network, our fellow Blue Wire family members, if you will, covering the Kansas City Chiefs. Kent, thanks for taking the time to join me. How are you doing tonight?
I gotta steal that music that we just heard, man. That was an absolute banger. That got me hyped. I was ready. That focused me right in. I'm locked in now, dude.
There we go. There we go. Shout out to the guy we hired from Fiverr for that one. So wish we could take credit for it, but we had to outsource it. So it's all good.
Nice. No, we gotta lift that. I was thinking it's like that must be a Blue Wire thing or something because we gotta try to get on that, but I guess not.
No, you gotta outsource things from Fiverr from time to time. So had to pay for some upgrades recently, and it's all good. So we're here to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, of course, talking about some of the offseason hot topics, some of the roster training camp updates as the Chiefs have been kind of, going back and forth with everything. And, we're heading into week 2 of the preseason, inching closer and closer towards, of course, the start of the regular season. So first and foremost, I think we have to start with the skill players. Obviously, a lot of turnover this year for the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm sure you guys are tired of talking about it. I don't necessarily want to force you to talk about the Tyreek Hill difference. I more so would like an update on really how you've seen this skill position group coming together. Of course, adding Juju Smith-Schuster, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and then also drafting Sky Moore. So what have been the early reports from what you guys have seen, heard, all that good stuff from that particular group of skill players?
Yeah, I think, I don't think the Chiefs have really skipped much of a beat to this point when you've seen what we've seen to this point. Kind of seems like business as usual. I mean, things are firing extremely efficiently. I mean, the ball's getting distributed and dispersed a little bit, more across during training camp and even during the game. 6 completions for Patrick Mahomes to 6 different guys, and Juju Smith-Schuster actually wasn't even one of them. So, I mean, the ball's getting distributed and moved around a lot. But it doesn't look like it's really affecting Mahomes to not have, Tyreek Hill out on it at this point. I mean, obviously that's going to change, right? But I think the early signs are offensively, this group's gelling. The ball's, a little bit less predictable now. And I think, I don't really anticipate the offense missing much of a beat compared to what they've been in recent memory.
Has there been one of that new trio, if you will, that's kind of asserting themselves as a number one? I think everybody's kind of assuming that there's going to be a lot of, like you said, ball distribution. Do you think ultimately someone kind of separates themselves as kind of a lead dog, if you will?
Juju Smith-Schuster's been the lead dog. I mean, He's been the best receiver in camp. He's been the guy. Like, if you're a fantasy player, Juju Smith-Schuster is the guy I would target if I'm looking in fantasy, because the chemistry's been there. I think where Juju Smith-Schuster wins is something that this team needed. This team didn't have consistently in prior seasons. I think about some of the stuff that, they asked Byron Pringle or Demarcus Robinson to do in some of those situations and some of those games. They didn't come through. They dropped the pass. There's been some, miscommunications on maybe some of the option routes. That hasn't been the case with Juju. And he's been a guy that's winning the ball at the catch point, really strong. I mean, a lot of the positive things you like about Juju Smith-Schuster have shown up to this point. The only caveat is, I mean, he hasn't practiced in a couple days. And I mean, injuries have always been the thing with him. So he's got a little knee thing going. Andy Reid said he expects him to be back. He's probably going to be practicing next week. But I mean, that's always the great question about it. It's never been talent with Juju. It's been the injury issues. But I mean, early indications, Juju's been outstanding.
There you go. Some little fantasy information inside info there. There's been, at least among the fantasy community, a lot of conversation about the Chiefs running back situation. Of course, you have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who you drafted a couple of years ago, signing Ronald Jones, and then Isaiah Pacheco, the rookie from Rutgers, been dominating headlines. What can you tell our listeners about that group? Not necessarily from a fantasy perspective, but again, similar conversation, right? Is there somebody that's asserted themselves, or is it going to be kind of a committee among those three?
Yeah, I mean, I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the guy that carries a lot of the load still. Like, I think they're going to lean on him a decent amount. But to your point, like, Isaiah Pacheco is a guy that's kind of asserting himself into that, that rotation a little bit here. He's played really well as well. I mean, I'm not really a sunshine guy very often, but man, like I think that they found another guy there that can be a really nice little piece as part of that rotation. Bigger dude, runs hard, good contact balance. He's actually shown better hands than I think people anticipated. So the hands have been pretty soft. I don't know if he's got the best vision, but I mean, he's been a nice little addition to that room. I still think Clyde's the guy though. Like I think he's going to be the one that's carrying the workload primarily. He's been okay, but I do think this team is he's still their best option to be the full load kind of player.
All right, sounds good. Wanted to get your quick thoughts here because I think last year a lot of people were curious to see how the scheme would change with all the bigger, beefier bodies that the Chiefs signed or traded or drafted. Of course, talking about Trey Smith, Creed Humphrey, Joe Tooney, and Orlando Brown. It didn't really seem like it changed a whole lot to me, but in the preseason game, there was a lot of under center work. What do you make of how this scheme is now going to change without Tyreek Hill and this kind of next phase of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes?
Well, last year it seemed like the Chiefs might be playing a little bit more man gap blocking schemes, but when the season came around and it came time to actually execute on game day, they didn't really run it all that much. I think that offensive line is better equipped for something like that, but that really hasn't been the case with the running game. As far as adjustments that this team makes, I don't think they're going to change a ton to their blocking scheme. I don't think I don't think I'm buying the under center stuff. I think they'll be a little bit more under center, but I think it'll probably still be the outside zone, that they've kind of leaned on heavily, some play action off of that. I don't know if I'm anticipating wholesale changes there. Andy, with his offense in the passing game, obviously, a lot more stuff ran through Tyreek in the past, but I still think a lot of the concepts are going to remain pretty similar. It's just where the ball is going is going to be a little bit less predictable. There's plenty of guys that they can manufacture touches to the same way they would with Tyreek at times. McCole Hardman's got some linear speed. Sky Moore is a guy they might utilize in the backfield and run some of those concepts. And I mean, even Juju Smith-Schuster can catch a ball on a screen and kind of be difficult to bring down out there. So I think there's, a lot of the same concepts will be employed in Kansas City. It's just a matter of where the ball's going.
Yeah, that's a great point. So we'll shift gears here and talk a little bit about the defense. I'm very curious to get your thoughts along the defensive line. Of course, a big part of the defensive struggles last year was due to the fact of Chris Jones playing outside of his position, not really having that second guy. This year, you guys have the defensive line settled, it feels like, at least with George Karlaftis and the addition of George Karlaftis, I should say, Chris Jones moving back inside. What have been the early reports of that group as they kind of, transition to this new phase?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of a mixed bag. The bar to clear for that defensive line is not really high, which I mean, it's kind of surprising considering Chris Jones was on that group, and that's a good player. But everything around him hasn't been particularly settled or particularly good. They're better than last year, but again, that wasn't a high bar to clear. George Karlaftis has really come on pretty strong. The entirety of this rookie class is, I mean, we'll probably get into a few more of them at some point. Mm-hmm. Really positive early returns for the entire rookie class, but George Karlaftis is possibly the guy that's been the most encouraging because, a lot of his, flexibility, fluidity, some of the questions you might have had coming out, he's not as stiff as he looked in college. He's playing at a little bit lighter. So turning the corner a little bit better, a lot more flexibility, and it showed. I mean, he's been at times the best defensive end in camp. I think Frank Clark's still probably been the most consistent, and he's looked good too. So, as far as big additions, like Karlaftis is the only one that's the significant, addition to this group, which has been great. But I think the likes of Frank Clark's come on a little bit better this year too. So I think the Chiefs are hoping that combination is going to be enough to help them improve up front.
Yeah, you did mention the rookies. I'm curious to get your thoughts here as well with Trent McDuffie. There was a lot of connections between the Chargers and Trent McDuffie. So, we did a lot of research on him and we liked him quite a bit on this show. How's he looked? And, by extension, Joshua Williams. Thank you. I should know that. We interviewed him, so I should have known that. But how are the rookie cornerbacks looking for the Chiefs so far?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not a sunshine pumper. I'm going to sound like just a blatant homer coming on here, but I mean, Trent McDuffie's been a day one starter, and he's been as advertised. I think the Chiefs are, Trent McDuffie's arm length is remarkably short. It's
Yeah,
pretty cool to see a guy like him get drafted as early as he did. I honestly, I think he would have made a lot of sense in LA. To be honest, I think he would have been a great scheme fit for you guys. I mean, he's got the versatility, he's the instincts, great off ball. The Chiefs are asking him to play a little bit more at the line of scrimmage, and I think they're really trying to challenge him with big guys throughout camp, and the growth has been really impressive. He's doing a lot of kind of focusing on playing through the hands of the receiver. And like obviously that's always an emphasis, but like it seems like the Chiefs are hyper focused on that specific thing. Maybe he's not playing the ball at the catch point as much as he's playing it at the hands, if that makes sense a little bit.
gotcha.
Not playing the ball as much. But he's doing a good job of disrupting, maybe not picking balls off, but he's done a lot of good stuff playing playing the ball, and he's gotten better and better as the camp's gone on. And Joshua Williams was actually starting for most of camp. He was I called nickel starting. I mean,
Everyone should, if we're being
everyone
honest.
should. He's been the third corner for the vast majority of camp, and that was due to some injury, but they threw him right into the fire, and he's been impressive. He's had some moments. Like I don't think he plays the ball well yet. I mean, kind of like Charvarius Ward did for the Chiefs. He wasn't particularly great playing the ball. There's a lot of similarities there to those two, but everything else has been really solid, and it's been impressive. There's actually another rookie too. Jalen Watson's been playing well as a 7th round pick out of Washington State. Another guy. I mean, there's 3 cornerbacks the Chiefs could see make this football team very easily and potentially contribute.
There you go. That loading up on the secondary seems to be paying off again. Not necessarily asking you to talk about Tyrann Mathieu, but obviously there's a big void in terms of leadership, in terms of versatility. How has Spagnuolo kind of gone about replacing him and filling that versatility and leadership void so far?
Yeah, I don't know if there's like an apples to apples comparison on changing, like from a versatility perspective, but the Chiefs they've got plenty of guys that I think they feel comfortable employing in different ways. Justin Reed's the big addition for this Chiefs team, period. From a contract perspective, I think he's the biggest contract that they doled out to a free agent. He's got some versatility there. He's better in the box than Tyrann Mathieu was. So I think he's a guy that can be a little bit more physical against the run. Juan Thornhill's coming on as a leader too, apparently, by all indications, more vocal, trying to help be a better communicator back there. So, I mean, I don't know if they're going to necessarily replace Tyrann Mathieu completely, but they're going to try to do it in the aggregate. And I mean, it's been a mixed bag, I think, overall at the safety position to this point. They've got another rookie, Brian Cook, a 2nd round pick, who's, a little bit iffy there. You probably going to see some opportunities in the dime, but I think they've done a decent job of trying to get as much as they can in the aggregate.
Has Spagnuolo shown any signs of changing schematically? I know he's kind of a cover 0, cover 1 kind of coordinator at heart. Has there been any indication that will change, or is it more of the same?
Well, honestly, in Kansas City, in his time with the Chiefs, they've played a lot of cover 2 as well, and I mean a lot of man blitz and for sure, but they're playing a lot of cover 2 as well to help protect their cornerbacks. I anticipate with such a young secondary, they're going to try to do a little bit of that too. Play that that split safety stuff and try to really help especially some of these younger corners. They're going to ask them, hey, be physical to the line of scrimmage, and hold on for dear life a little bit out there. And I think you'll probably see a lot more cover 2 still. So I don't know if they're probably not going to be as elaborate. I would anticipate, if anything, it's probably going to be scaling things back a little bit more. He's not going to be able to get into his bag of tricks as early or as frequently as in the past. But I think probably pretty similar splits to what we've seen them do recently.
Gotcha. All right. Well, next thing here, I always like to get, thoughts on the division overall. Of course, the Chiefs have essentially owned the division for the last 7-8 years, hosted 4 straight AFC championship games. And still, as happens every year, everybody talks about, in terms of national media, like who is going to unseat the Kansas City Chiefs. Of course, a lot of people like the Chargers, a lot of people like the Raiders, a lot of people like the Broncos. I feel like there's not a lot of faith from the media that the Chiefs can, kind of rekindle the magic again this year. So what is your response to kind of the lack of media attention this year, if you will?
I think it's fair. I mean, because of the loss of Tyreek Hill, because this team is leaning very heavily on a lot of rookies, probably more than they ever have in the Andy Reid era. I think it's fair for them to not necessarily be getting as much shine as they have in the past. But I'm not gonna bet against Patrick Mahomes. I can't do it. Like, I know he made the joke about Justin Herbert. I think he said I'll see it when I believe it.
Yeah, he
Instead of
said
I
it the
believe
wrong
it.
way,
Yeah,
but yeah.
I think we all got the sentiment. I think even it's just I'm not gonna bet against him not winning this division. I'm not even sure. I mean, we know nothing different in Kansas City than an AFC Championship game appearance in his tenure. So it's like I think quietly I think there's a lot of confidence in Kansas City that this won't be the year that they get unseated. But I completely understand why the shine is worn off this football team. Maybe this is a year that Mahomes wins an MVP if he does, elevate this team and this version of this team because the narrative has shifted enough. But it's definitely warranted the level of concern, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about the arms race, man. This year was crazy,
Mm-hmm.
and when the Chargers traded for Khalil Mack, I was like, all right, there we go. That's the big move of the offseason. And then of course Broncos had Russell Wilson, Raiders had Devontae Adams. So don't worry. Go ahead.
This is good. It's a threat, but it's playful. Okay.
Go for
It better work. And
it.
it better work this year. Like this is the year the Chiefs bleed, and this is your chance. This is the big I think this is a big window for the rest of the AFC West. And if they can't unseat Patrick Mahomes this year, it's gonna get ugly because the Chiefs have 12 draft picks in next year's draft. They loaded up with a young core of rookie players this year, and it's looking pretty solid so far. They're about to be a lot more cap healthy than they've been in the past. Like this is the year they bleed, and if it's not enough, it's going to be a big uphill battle because this team is positioning themselves extremely well with the amount of draft capital and and how things are kind of projecting right now. You better do it sooner rather than later, especially since the entire AFC West invested in aging pass rushers, right? Those guys are going to be very solid for a couple of years, but there's going to be a point where Mother Nature catches up to them too.
That's totally fair. And we last year were talking about in the middle of the season, like, okay, this is the year that you beat the Chiefs, right? Like the Chiefs were kind of struggling out the gate. The Chargers were at the start of the season 6-2. Then the whole team caught COVID, and then they lost to the Texans, and they lost to the Broncos, and all just kind of went downhill. And then, of course, ended up losing to the Raiders. So that's totally fair, man. I think there's a lot of hype around Charger fans, of course, but there should still be a lot of okay, let's make the playoffs before we kind of anoint this team. And there is a lot of, like I said, media love, and the Chargers are a Super Bowl contender. I would like to see them win a playoff game before I'm like, okay,
I get it.
They are a Super Bowl contending team. You know what I mean? So again,
but looking at this team, there's a lot of it's a deep uber talent. I think we went through when we were doing some of our season preview stuff this year. I think we all argued this probably the most talented team, might be one of the most talented teams in the entire NFL. Probably in the AFC West. I'm definitely in the AFC West. It's it's hard to poke holes in this group. And I get it's kind of the same thing though. It's like the flip side of the coin. Let's see it first before we, and it's kind of the same thing. Yes, theoretically the Chiefs should be down, but I've got to see it first, right? And it's the same thing on the flip side. Everything's telling me that the Chargers should win this division and potentially position themselves extremely well in the AFC playoffs. But let's find out. Let's see first.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more there. And there's also always that talk of the Chargers, right? And there is just this sentiment that they've always had this kind of talent. What I always say to people who say that this is the same story every single year, this particular offseason is different. It's a really simple move, right? But somebody like Kyle Van Noy just does not happen to this team previously. Somebody that's an established Super Bowl winning kind of player, still has a lot to give. That move has never happened. They've gone big fish hunting before. They've gotten a player similar story to Khalil Mack, but somebody like Kyle Van Noy, I think, is going to pay huge dividends for this team.
Yeah, and I think just across the board, I think you've got legit depth there too at so many different positions where you can withstand some of the some of the old, Chargers injuries. Like there's enough depth there to withstand some real blows and still have a lot of depth, and a lot of talent at your disposal. Like that's what's interesting about this team to me too.
Yeah. And I know from my perspective, last thing on the Chargers here, and then I'll get your kind of final thoughts here. But this offensive line should be very good. Right tackle is still a concern, but this is easily the most talented offensive line of my lifetime. So I'm excited to see how that one pans out. So final question for you here. Who do you guys on your show kind of see as that second threat, or biggest threat, I should say, to the Chiefs in the division? Is it the Raiders, Broncos, Chargers? Who do you got kind of thinking that it's the second team?
It's easily the Chargers. Have you guys had as much fun making fun of Russell Wilson as I have?
Dude, so much fun. A couple weeks ago, there was Keenan Allen was mic'd up, and he was kind of playfully poking at the let's ride thing. And so Chargers fans have had a lot of fun with the Russell Wilson stuff.
Oh,
sure.
I think we all have. Let's ride, man. Raiders, I think, are going to be sneaky good. But no, I think it's not just the division. It's everything. It's the Super Bowl. It's the future. It's everything. I mean, the Chargers are so on paper are extremely viable Super Bowl contender, and I think this battle is going to be a lot of fun for the next decade. As long as these two quarterbacks are going back and forth, we're gonna have a lot of fun in the AFC West.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. So, Kent, where can our listeners find you guys if they want some good Chiefs intel?
Yeah, check out KC Sports Network. We're on YouTube. We're on every podcast platform. We got all kinds of shows. We got former Chiefs players. We've got a lot of really different perspectives, and we got a lot of content running throughout the year and throughout the week. So KC Sports Network on YouTube is probably your best bet to find what we're up to.
All right, man. Sounds good. Really appreciate your time and your insight. Chargers fans, go show him some love. Make sure and check out their channel. Only a few short weeks away from the debut of Amazon Prime in Kansas City.
Woo!
Cannot wait for that, Ken. Thanks so much, man, and have a good one.
Yeah, anytime, man.